Welcome to the Stephen Joseph Theatre in Scarborough, the home theatre of Alan Ayckbourn, and where the playwright has premiered the majority of his work since 1996. This is the third home of the company Alan Ayckbourn joined in 1957 when he began work at the Library Theatre, based in Scarborough Library, and is the company with which he has been associated his whole life. And within the Stephen Joseph Theatre itself, that history of both the company, its venues and its relationship with Alan Ayckbourn is recorded in the Bob Watson Archive. And if you've never heard of the Bob Watson Archive, you're not alone. Most visitors to the theatre probably don't know it exists either, and have no doubt walked past it many times without even noticing this wonderful little theatrical asset. So let's have a look and see if we can find the Bob Watson Archive and take a peek inside and see what it tells us about the Stephen Joseph Theatre and its history with Alan Ayckbourn. Well, now we've found it, welcome to the Bob Watson Archive at the Stephen Joseph Theatre in Scarborough. I'm Simon Murgatroyd, Alan Ayckbourn's Archivist, and part of my responsibilities is maintaining the Bob Watson Archive. So let's have a look and see what's in the archive. The archive was founded when the company moved into this, its third home, in 1996. Previously, the archive had been stored in offices, but when the company moved here, it was decided there should be a permanent archive. Although it does appear to have been a bit of a last-minute decision, as the original plans show that this room was actually the cloakroom. The archive was initially run voluntarily by Bob Watson, and he did an extraordinary job in compiling and organising the archive. Which brings us to a tragic tale of the Bob Watson Archive. For back in the 1980s, all the archive documentation was stored in the press and publicity offices due to lack of space at the previous venue, the Stephen Joseph Theatre in the Round. The press officer at the time apparently kept complaining about the lack of space in their office due to the archive and financial documents being stored in there. No one paid this much regard until one morning when it was noticed there seemed to be a lot more room in the press office. And hadn't there been a lot more bin bags outside the theatre that morning? From all accounts, the majority of the theatre's archive, 30 years worth of material at that point, had been dumped by the press office, and by the time anyone realised, it had gone into the back of a dustbin lorry, never to be seen again. Needless to say, that particular press officer is not regarded very highly within the archive, although, thankfully, their tenure with the company was relatively short. What Bob Watson did was restore the archive, and he filled in the many gaps where he could and created the foundations of the archive which would be named after him following his death in 2004. And he did an extraordinary job. To say the majority of the archive prior to the mid-1980s had gone, he managed to find programmes and photographs, and where he couldn't find originals, he managed to get photocopies. He found posters and press cuttings. So the archive is in a far better state than it has any right to be, considering what was happening. I had been working with Bob in the archive, and I made a strong case that someone needed to continue his work, and thus I, rather unexpectedly, found that he had become an archivist. My initial work was organising and building on Bob's work and scanning the Ayckbourn side of the archive, which, obviously, the majority of inquiries to the Bob Watson Archive relate to. It's a small space, though, and it is quite limited in its holdings, as you can see. The archive holds primarily programmes, scripts, posters, press cuttings, as well as a small selection of other important documentation. Sadly, due to the lack of space, we're not able to keep larger pieces such as model box or stage plans before it all went digital. Despite this, it's still an impressive holding for its size. The archive holds manuscripts going back to the theatre's founding in 1955 and has the prompt scripts for most of Alan Ayckbourn's world premieres from the 1980 onwards. There are also gems such as the original production manuscript for The Woman in Black, which premiered in Scarborough before going on to becoming the West End's second longest running play. There are also some genuine pieces of theatre history here. We have the very first poster for Alan Ayckbourn's premiere play, The Square Cat. As far as I'm aware, there are only 2 copies of this in existence, and the SJT has the best copy of it. Obviously, we have original manuscripts for many of Alan Ayckbourn's plays which have premiered in this theatre, second only to the Borthwick Institute for Archives, where the Alan Ayckbourn archive is held. The real strength of the archive is the Ayckbourn collection, as Alan has obviously been premiering plays with this company since 1959, and the collection has photographs, press cuttings and publicity material relating to both the playwright and his plays, as well as his connection with the company. It's an invaluable source of research material, much of which is held digitally and utilised to handle research inquiries to the archive. It also has, rather importantly, the biggest collection of material relating to Alan's work as an actor. Alan started at the Library Theatre as an acting stage manager, and from 1957 until 1962 he was predominantly an actor with the company. He did some directing and a little bit of writing, but the majority of his work is acting, and there are detailed files within here of reviews and photographs of Alan acting, so that is invaluable. Sadly, due to its lack of space, the archive isn't publicly accessible and is primarily an internal resource for the company. Most inquiries to the archive are handled digitally, although there is a small exhibition space at the front of the archive for when I do occasional tours for visitors to the building. But if you do have an inquiry regarding the Stephen Joseph Theatre or Alan Ayckbourn's relationship with the Stephen Joseph Theatre, please feel free to contact me. I'd be delighted to try and help with any inquiry about the history of this wonderful building. So that's the Bob Watson archive at the Stephen Joseph Theatre in a nutshell. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tour into one of the most important archives relating to Alan Ayckbourn, and don't forget, please subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. Thank you.